Switzerland and Japan might dominate watchmaking. But with the 4th of July right around the corner, I wanted to do something special. So I picked out 4 American microbrands making watches that look way too good to fly under the radar. Hi everyone, I am Islam. In the world of wristwatches, Japan and Switzerland are usually the first countries that come to mind. However, the US has a rich history of watchmaking dating back hundreds of years. Before Switzerland and Japan dominated, America was the trailblazer. Waltham and Elgin were the household names thanks to mass production techniques that cut costs and set global standards. But the Depression and World War II shifted production to military needs. When the peace returned, Swiss makers had cemented their position. The quartz crisis 2 decades later was the final blow. Expensive labor and slow adaptation shut down most US watchmakers. Now, small teams are picking up the torch, making gorgeous, well-made watches. They use Japanese and Swiss movements, but build the soul stateside. With the 4th of July coming, these watches aren't just stylish, they represent American ingenuity, design, resilience, and freedom. The first one is this gorgeous watch inspired by old school vintage skin diver and ready for modern adventures with GMT functionality and 200 meters of water resistance. You know, no matter what you think, watches are luxury regardless of price. We don't really need a watch on our wrist to tell the time. So when I make a luxury purchase, I really do appreciate the experience. When I opened the box and out of this little bag, I could tell someone really thought about this. It looks like a passport holder, a soft tan leather zip case with Imperial Watch Company and the Oceanguard seal pressed right into the front. Almost like a passport stamp from some secret coastal nation. The whole thing instantly gives you this adventure is calling kind of vibe. There's a spot for your watch, but also slots for cards, a pen, a strap tool, even a little pouch that could fit your boarding pass or passport. There's even a little snap pocket sized for an AirTag. It's a little travel case, and that to me says a lot about how Ben thinks. It's not about sending you a product, it's about building an experience. And for a GMT like this, with travel baked into its purpose, the little touch hits perfectly. Okay, so this one comes in at $599 retail and features several beautiful variants to choose from: Pepsi, Coke, or this gorgeous root beer. The dial has a very obvious vintage vibe. Big, bold markers, chunky hands, and everything spaced out just right. It could have easily felt crowded with how much is going on, but it doesn't. It actually wears clean and balanced. What stood out to me right away was the finish. This one is glossy when the light hits it. The hands reflect off the surface. You don't always catch it. It lends the watch settled depth. The lume is strong, Swiss BGW9, and it glows that icy blue that pops in the dark. Each hour marker is outlined and filled generously. The red GMT hand cuts across it all nicely. The printing, especially the logo and text, is done in a subtle gilt tone that becomes noticeable when the light catches it. It's not shiny gold, more like a mellow warm contrast against that black gloss. Add the roulette date wheel and it all leans further into that vintage travel watch aesthetic. And knowing Ben's story, how he started with modding and went full circle to designing this watch, you kind of see that personal touch in everything. This came from years of tinkering, sketching, wearing, and probably a whole lot of trial and error. His very first watch was an old Timex Ironman that belonged to his dad. He wore it upside down on his wrist during Coastal Guard boot camp because it made push-ups more comfortable. That detail alone tells you everything. This guy builds watches the way someone does when they have actually worn them in real life. The Oceanguard is thoughtful. And while it doesn't shout heritage or military issue, you can feel the influence baked into the layout. The proportions, the choice of colors, the design feels like it was created by someone who truly misses the old school feel but wants the convenience of modern specs. Something that looks like it's been on few adventures and holds up when you take it on one. And that's what makes the whole thing feel trustworthy. It's not just a cool design, it's a product of someone's actual story. It's not flawless either. I spotted a speck or two under macro, but it adds to that charm for me at least. This isn't a giant brand trying to be perfect. It's a small outfit making fun watches that nail the feel they're going for. The gold tone text and warm highlights on the dial play really well with the bezel. And that bezel is a standout feature detail here. It's not just root beer, it's more like a mix between burgundy, copper, and aged gold. You can see from the pictures that it looks excellent. And in person it looks and feels even better. The font on the bezel is custom hand-drawn. From close-up, it's not the usual crisp, uniform GMT numerals. There are a few quirks in the painting, some slight imperfections when you look closely, and I kinda like it. It gives the watch character, makes it feel a bit more handmade. The bezel itself is bidirectional and friction fit, which is unusual these days. There are no clicks, just a smooth, steady rotation. Personally, I usually prefer that ticking feel you get from a diver's bezel. The bezel holds its position really well though. Once it's set, it doesn't drift, and that's what really matters when you are tracking another time zone. The case measures at 38mm in width, 47mm lug-to-lug length, and approximately 14mm in thickness. The shape wraps around the wrist nicely, and it has this compact, slightly vintage skin diver feel. When I first wore it, I thought this kind of reminds me of Black Bay 54. Not exactly the same, but the way it wears gave me that feeling, that solid curved case profile. It's got a familiar presence, a bit on the bulky side and top heavy, but that is because of NH34 movement. That movement is thick. The sapphire crystal has a nice dome, and the anti-reflective coating on it is super clean. I noticed it right away. It doesn't get in the way or create reflections. You get that soft distortion at the edges, and it makes the watch more fun to look at throughout the day. The bracelet is a 5-link Jubilee style, fully brushed. It's comfortable, solid, feels well put together. There is no quick release here, so you will need a spring bar tool if you want to switch it out. But honestly, it wears so nicely on the bracelet that I haven't felt the urge to take it off yet, but this is definitely one of those watches that can pull off different looks. Then there is the clasp. It's got an on-the-fly micro adjust system built in. Just pull button adjustment you can do anytime. It makes a huge difference, especially when you're out and your wrist swells or you just want a looser fit. The action is smooth and has a nice tactile feel when clicks into the place. The crown is bigger than usual, and honestly, that is a good thing. It is super easy to grip and operate, whether you are adjusting the time or just setting the GMT hand. Everything feels smooth and tight. Inside, it is running a Seiko NH34, a collar style GMT movement. That means the GMT hand sets independently and the main hour doesn't jump like it would on the Flyer GMT. You're getting hacking, hand winding, and a proven automatic movement that is easy to service. The downside is that the movement is a bit thick. You feel it in the case height, and the watch is a bit top heavy. Not unwearable by any means, but if it were a little thinner, I think it would wear it even better. Still, it's the trade-off for having a GMT in this price range, and honestly, one I can live with. This one is slightly more expensive than Imperial, priced at $875 in 2 variants. The white dial with the contrasting black bezel looks hella cool too. The first thing that stands out with the TrailTrekker is the color and the finish. Nothing polished, nothing shiny, just a solid matte gray all around. The case, bracelet, even the crown, it's all been given this dark, sandblasted look, especially because of the gray DLC coating. It gives the whole watch this almost stealthy, tactical feel, but without screaming for attention. You feel like you could knock it against a rock and not worry about it. I would not recommend that though. When you move to the dial, the first thing you notice is the texture. It's not glossy or smooth. It's this soft, flat Cerakote finish in the sand tone. The color is subtle, a bit earthy, which really fits with the trail vibe they're going for. The applied indices are blocky, squared off, and filled with bright blue BGW9 lume. They are surrounded by polished gunmetal frames that catch the light just enough without breaking the matte feel. There is a day and night chapter ring circling the dial by color, but muted, and it kind of disappears when you're not paying attention, which I like. It's functional when you need it, and the dial is dual branded with both Nodus and Raven printed in a low-key black. It's all very understated, but thoughtfully done. You can tell it's not just the dial pulled up from parts bin, it's custom, and it shows. The bezel is fixed 24-hour scale, also coated in that sand-colored Cerakote with engraved numerals filled in black. It's subtle but easy to read. This one is one of those design choices where you can tell they were not trying to do too much. It's not flashy, but it works, and it fits the purpose of the watch. Functional, reliable. The crystal is a box style sapphire, just slightly raised with the blue AR coating on the underside. It's crisp, and more importantly, it disappears in most lighting. That's always something I notice. When the crystal isn't a distraction, the rest of the watch gets to breathe. Then there is the case, 39.5mm wide, 11.8mm thick, 46.6mm lug to lug. On paper, that sounds a big watch, or at least for me, but on the wrist, it feels just perfect. It does wear smaller than that almost 40mm case suggests, thanks to that compact 46.6 lug to lug. The thickness is especially noticeable because it's not bulky, and that's impressive considering it's running the Miyota 9T75 Flyer GMT movement and still gets you that 200 meters of water resistance. It wears like a proper tool watch. but it doesn't feel oversized or overly chunky. The shape hugs the wrist and all matte finish keeps things grounded. It doesn't reflect much light and it can easily slide under a cuff, but that's not really what this watch is about. It's about being on your wrist when you're moving through the real world environments, trails, planes, road trips, or whatever you throw at it. Let's talk bracelet. Right away, the flat link design stands out. It's all brushed, just like the case, with no polished accents to break that rugged look. It tapers from 20 millimeters at the legs down to 16 at the clasp, which gives it a nice balance on the wrist. Secure, but not bulky. The links are flat and tied almost like a modern twist on vintage bracelet. It's comfortable. There is no jangle or looseness, and the fit feels solid. The edges are well machined, nothing digs into your wrist. The whole bracelet matches that case's gray DLC finish, blending in perfectly. The whole thing feels like a single unit. The quick release spring bars on the bracelet makes it very easy to remove. When I tried this on a couple of leather straps I had lying around, I simply pop the tabs and you're done. And honestly, this thing is a strap monster. I threw it on a dark brown leather strap first, totally changed the vibe. Then I tried a more rugged tan one. The muted dial and matte gray case just work with so many different styles. It's great when a watch doesn't limit you to one look. Some watches only feel right on their stock bracelet, but TrailTrekker does not have that problem. And with the quick release system, switching straps is easy. Additionally, the win here is the clasp. The Node X on-the-fly micro adjust feature. It's a button-activated system with 5 internal positions, giving you the 10 millimeter of total adjustment. It's easy and smooth to operate. I kind of like it more than a few others I have used. Just press, slide, and click, done. Especially on hot days or when your wrist swells after being active, this kind of adjustment makes a massive difference. It's not just a comfort feature, it makes the watch more wearable. Now, let's talk about what's powering all of this, the Miura 9075. This movement is what's known as a flyer GMT, which means the local hour hand jumps independently while the GMT hand stays fixed. If you're flying across time zones, this is the movement you want. When you land, simply unscrew the crown, pull it to the first position, and you can jump the hour hand forward or backward in 1 hour increments. The date advances with it. I'm not sure about not being able to adjust the date independently, but it's a Miura 9 series movement, which is dependable, reliable, and functional. No need to hack the watch, no need to reset anything. The GMT hand continues to track your home time or wherever you have set it, while the main hour hand adjusts to your new local time. It is quick, intuitive, and it feels really satisfying to use. Compare that to a collar GMT movement such as the Seiko's NH34 or ETA 2893, where the GMT hand moves independently and the hour hand remains fixed. That's what makes the Miura 9075 a bit more interesting. It brings the flyer style function, which used to be reserved for high-end watches, down to a more accessible level. Nodus regulates these in-house to within plus and minus 8 seconds per day, which is tighter than the factory specification. You also get the 28,800 vibrations per hour, so the second hand sweeps nicely and smoothly. The power reserve is 42 hours, which is a decent amount. You won't be able to go a whole weekend without resetting it, but for daily wear, it is totally fine. What I appreciate is how well the 9075 sits inside the case. It's not a slim movement, but they have managed to keep the whole watch under 12 millimeter thick, including the sapphire. That is impressive. It doesn't wear like a chunky travel watch. Okay, so the third micro brand here is the Traska. These retail for $600. I have got 3 Traska commuters here in front of me, green, blue, and white. And these aren't the latest batch. These are a couple of years old, but they have held up pretty well. Each one's got the same general silhouette, clean, compact, very wearable, but they're not all identical. Like the blue version has polished case sides, while my white and green ones have fully brushed sides. All of them have Traska's hardened steel finish, so they wear tougher than you would expect. These watches have seen plenty of desk dives and weekend trips, and they have picked up fewer scratches than most watches would over the same time. Now, one thing mine does not have is on-the-fly adjust clasp. The bracelets are still really solid, well machined, fully brushed with no sharp edges, but the adjustment is old school. If you want the modern quick adjust clasp, you will want to check out newer releases from Traska's sites. They have updated it now with the toolless GPS built-in system, and that is a pretty welcome upgrade. Even without it though, these wear comfortably. The case is slim, the bracelet tapers nicely, the whole watch disappears on the wrist. It doesn't scream for attention, and that's what I like about it. Each dial color brings a different vibe, and even though these are older models, they have aged very well. Still look great, still feel relevant. The dial on the Commuter is probably what makes it stand out the most in Traska's lineup. It's simple, but it's also really refined. There is no date window on this white and blue models. You can choose a date when you're selecting a model, whether you want a date on it or not. The dial features a clean typography and sharp hands that convey the information directly. The markers are applied and the facet giving off a nice bit of light when you tilt the watch. Each one is crisp and clean. The hour and minute hands are long and precise. They taper in a way that gives them some elegance while still feeling modern. The second hand sweeps smoothly thanks to that high beat Miota movement. Color-wise, the dials have their own personalities. The white one feels crisp and clinical, easy to read, minimal, very versatile. The green has a kind of soft olive tone that shifts slightly depending on the light. The blue is deeper and feels most classic of the three, I would say. Now, the full specs. The case is coming in at 36.5mm across. The lug to lug on this one is 44mm. Thickness is just 8.6 without crystal and 10.5 with it. 20mm lug width, screw down crown, 100 meters of water resistant, sapphire crystal with internal AR coating, solid case back. Inside it runs the Miota 9039, no ghost date position, high beat at 28,800 vibrations per hour, and it is regulated in-house by Traska. The movement is super slim, which is a big part of why the watch wears so flat. You barely feel it on your wrist. The bracelet on all three of mine is solid links, fully brushed with screw pins. No push pins or collar systems. The clasp is simple and secure, but like I mentioned earlier, these older models don't have the on-the-fly adjustment. That's been added in the newer version, which is definitely a nice touch if you're looking at buying one now. Overall, the Commuter does not try to do much. That's the point. It's designed to be the kind of watch you forget you're wearing until someone asks you what it is. And this watch is a strap monster. Looks excellent on leather straps. Brew is coming in at $475, the most affordable of the 4 watches featured today. The last one I have here is the Brew Metric, specifically the retro dial version. I actually picked this one up off eBay for less than retail, and it only came with the watch head and a case, no bracelet. So right now I have got it on a blue silicone strap. It's not perfect, but it works. Eventually I'll find something really suits it. Maybe a mesh or a retro style bracelet. Even without the original bracelet, this thing still has loads of character. The case is compact at 36mm wide, but it doesn't feel small. The shape helps a lot with that. It's got this rectangular, cushiony case with rounded corners that gives it a proper 70s vibe. The finishing is a mix, brushed across the top with polished chamfers and sides. It's subtle, but really well done. The proportions feel tight. It's not trying to look too big or bold, just sleek and a throwback. The dial on the Brew Metric Retro is matte black, and that gives it a grounded, almost instrument-like feel. No shine, no gloss flare, just flat texture that lets the detail stand out. What grabs you first are the subdials. They are cream colored. The color is warm, not faded, and if you look closely, each subdial has a circular grooved pattern, almost like a vinyl record grooves. The contrast between the black base and the cream subdials makes it super legible. You have also got these tight, crisp lines printed around the parameters, giving you minute and tacky scales. The layout is busy in concept, like 3 subdials, text, and hash marks, but it doesn't feel cramped. There is enough breathing room between everything. The hands are slim, slick shaped. The chrono hand is long and runs to the outer edge, which keeps everything easy to read. It is definitely a modern watch, but the design is inspired by an era when watches were primarily functional objects, especially a chronographs like this one. One of the coolest parts is how specific this chronograph is. It is designed to time espresso shots, like actual 25-35 second windows. Makes it feel personal. A mecha quartz movement powers it, so you get that satisfying snap when you hit the chrono and the second hand resets instantly like a mechanical. However, it still runs on a battery, so you don't need to worry about winding, or maintaining a power reserve. The crystal is flat sapphire, so you are protected there. And the case is water resistant to 50 meters, not dive worthy, but totally fine for everyday wear. And yeah, without that bracelet, you miss out on Brew's usual polished, brushed integration, but with the right strap, it still wears great. What really pulls the whole dial together is the way colors work off of each other. You have got that flat black base, which sets a neutral backdrop, and then the cream subdial pops against it without feeling loud. It's a soft contrast that's easy on the eyes. The orange chronosecond hand adds just a bit of brightness, like a quiet nod to a vintage racing watches or instrument panels. It's not overdone, just enough colors to make things interesting. Everything is balanced, just a few carefully chosen tones that give the dial a kind of charm, functional personality. Let me know which one of these is your favorite. I will see you guys on the next one. Until then, take care.